Hey, YouTube says we're live. Hello, everyone. How are you? Let me know how the volume level is and whether you can hear me. I think we might be a tiny bit out of sync here with audio, but anyway, I think it's good enough. And hello. This for me, it's an afternoon with actually some sunshine today. It's been a week of pretty cloudy and rainy, but a little bit of sunshine today. And yeah, nice to see you tuning in. I see the chat there, and I wanted to do a little live stream to kind of celebrate the end of season 5 of Harpist in the Wild, because it started this season. I started posting the season when I was in Europe and finished just after I got back, and didn't really have time to do a celebration of the fact that the season was completed. These 9 episodes from my trip earlier this year to New Zealand and Australia and Japan. Volume is good, excellent, great. And just a little live stream to share some stories and share some previously unreleased footage. I'm actually going to try and do sort of a full-length feature film. No, not that long, but a full-length video about that trip. So I'm constantly kind of playing around with the format of Harpist in the Wild, right? In terms of trying to figure out what exactly I want to do with it. That first season, of course, was just improvs, where I don't think I actually ever maybe put a full-length improv, but it would be a little bit of this improv or a little bit of that improv, and then tying a story about that together. And that was mainly to reuse some older footage that I'd had, and that was cool. But again, I love the sort of a piece where you get to actually prepare it and have it ready to play the way you want to play it. And so that's been the rest of the seasons, right? Have been composed pieces. And so then in season 2, A Baroque Feast, I have so many fond memories of that. I told a story about the piece of music. So these are all these Baroque pieces by famous composers. So some great stories to tell. And I really enjoyed putting that together. But I also posted the music videos, right? Just the music itself. And I think that has a much broader appeal, right? If you think about it, that just sort of the YouTube platform, that of course there's something wonderful about the story, but anyone might be interested in hearing the music. And it's something you could listen to again and again, whereas you don't necessarily want to hear the story again. And so, yeah, I played around with that. Then I think in season 3, I was often putting the story, I think, at the end. I can't remember. Season 3, I was telling more about the story of sometimes the filming, not the piece, but the filming. And then season 4, right, which had a lot of stuff from Europe last year. I think the first one, so The Minstrel's Adieu, I told the story first, and then I did the performance. But for most of them, I think I had the story at the end. And again, like The Minstrel's Adieu, the video just of the music has a greater reach, and it got more views than the one with the story. So yeah, trying to figure out for myself how I want to do that. And so for this season, I just posted the music videos, right? But what I think I'm going to do, what I'm working on doing, is to take some of this footage that I had from my trip and to do a full sort of story video about the whole process, about this whole season. And so I think for you, my diehard fans, right, you're interested in that. But for the sort of the general public who might randomly click on something, there's more interest in just, I think, a music video. So anyway, I'm still experimenting with that. But here, yeah, I have a lot of footage that I took on this trip, and I wanted to share some of that with you. So let's start with just a little bit of a montage of New Zealand. Let's see. I'm just going to move this down here. It's so beautiful, and here is just some random footage. And yeah, fantastic. This was my first time flying west, right? Heading to New Zealand for Harpfest New Zealand and then touring. And I wanted to take advantage of that, so I then also planned to go to Australia and Japan, not to perform, but just to visit. And this was also great because I feel this was sort of the first time that I put the call out there, hey, I'm going to be in these countries. Does someone want to help me film a Harp Tuesday episode, a Harpist in the Wild episode? Because I wouldn't have a harp with me, and I need a harp and transportation and local knowledge of where to film. And so I got a couple great responses then in Australia and Japan of people that I had never met or known beforehand, but they were organized this. They did a bunch of scouting and preparation and yeah, some great, really cool experience then to be able to do that. And yeah, really, really wonderful. And so, yeah, that was definitely a neat experience of this. It was also a bit tricky this whole season because certainly in the beginning, my focus was on the Harpfest and then the program that I was performing in New Zealand, which was on pedal harp, so that it made it hard to sort of try and sort of juggle having that prepared and then also having some pieces prepared to play on lever harp for Harpist in the Wild. And you'll see that in a couple of these clips. But yeah, so let's see what next shall we show? Well, here just again a little bit of New Zealand. Here's just some driving through New Zealand a little bit. Lot of driving. Here we go. Nope. And yeah, on of course the wrong side of the road, the left side of the road, which was exciting. The thing that got me was all the roundabouts, a lot of roundabouts in New Zealand, and especially the double roundabouts. The first one, I missed my turn off because I was in the wrong lane, but got used to it, and it wasn't so bad. This was the second time I'd driven on the left side of the road, and a friend's mom, I think, gave me the advice that just remember passenger in curb or something like that. That when you're driving, assuming that the wheel is on the correct side for that country, if you're making a turn, just to remember that the passenger stays next to the side of the road. And I found that really helpful. So yeah, anyway, good times. Not huge. It's not a huge country, right? So a lot of driving, but not, like 8-hour drives or anything. So in the end, quite enjoyable, I think. And again, just the beauty of New Zealand, right? This was one of my favorite moments on the west coast of the South Island, with these amazing waves just constantly breaking and so mesmerizing. I mean, this is slow motion here, but and at that point I had a little bit of time and I had a lever harp, and I tried to film something. So that was the evening. I didn't have the harp with me at that point, but I came back the next morning and getting ready to film something, and I was struggling with what am I going to play. And then as I was set up, actually I tried a little improv. I'll play it for you here. But the sun had started to come out from behind the clouds, so good for maybe some light, but it was really hot and too hot for me and too hot for the harp. So I tried this little improv, and then I had to pack up and hike back out. And I passed I passed somebody on the way in, and a harp. Oh, okay. Talked to them a little bit, and on the way back out, they'd gone and gotten their buddies, and we heard there was a Canadian harpist playing. We want to come see. So I had to disappoint them anyway. But good times, good adventures, but didn't end up using anything of that for an episode. But again, I think for this whole story arc, I think it's great. And then a similar case, so still on the South Island, and that was something that confused me. I still have to really think about the fact that in New Zealand, south means it's getting colder because you're getting closer to the South Pole. So in the South Island, just before I flew back to Auckland, I had a day in Christchurch where I'd returned my rented car, but someone there, Fiona, who was a mom of a former student of Helen Webby, who had supplied the harps I was using on the South Island. Anyway, she had volunteered to let's go film something, and so we headed out and we tried the Rock of Gibraltar, which it's this big rock on the mountaintops that looks like Gibraltar, and it was super windy. Wow! And so I couldn't set up a music stand or anything, right? It was just too windy, and I didn't have anything memorized. So again, I tried a little improv. I'll play that for you here. So yeah, my fingers were getting so cold with the elevation and with the wind, and it was just blowing. And again, these great experiences, but nothing that I ended up using. And so we went scouting for a couple other locations, and kind of were racing the sun at one point as the sun was going down, and ended up on this sort of viewpoint that looked down at the ocean. And I filmed one take of my fantasy on Greensleeves. So in the end, I preferred my performance and the setting, I guess, in Japan. Right, I managed to do 3 takes there, so I could splice back and forth, and that's the one that I posted. That was the final episode of this season. But this one was quite atmospheric as well. So I think what I'll do is I'll play the whole thing for you. So here is my fantasy on Greensleeves on lever harp. So yeah, there it was, right? And even if I don't end up using the footage, right, it's always just a real rush sometimes to be doing these adventures and attempting these recordings. You can see my hair was quite wild from all the wind, and a beautiful evening, right, and a great experience. So, and from there, then I went back to Auckland, back to the North Island, and stayed with Anna Dunwoody for a few days, and we recorded the dyads, which I guess, so this was the first of the ones that actually became one of the episodes. I put it as episode 2 because I wanted to start with my own composition, Forgotten Summer, but chronologically, this one, let's see, I can play it for you here for a moment. This was the first episode, or the first recording. So we recorded a couple of duets, these short dyad duets by Bernard Andres. And she also helped me record we attempted another recording. Again, ended up kind of racing the sun a little bit. So we were at this location with a bunch of black swans, right, which pretty exotic for me, and tried to film the Last Ros of Summer. So Godefroy did this version of the Last Ros of Summer for pedal harp, and then I arranged it for lever harp. It's in my transcriptions for lever harp book 1. So yeah, we filmed that. In the end, I was happier with, again, the performance in Tasmania, and that's the one I used, but I'll show you a little bit of this. And then it was on to do a bunch more touring on the North Island, again driving around, and Anna had lent me, so I was bringing a Lyon & Healy Style 23 that I was performing on, but she'd lent me a little music maker's kit harp that they no longer make, but that she built, and very, very light, reasonable number of strings, not 34, but a reasonable number, and just in case I had an opportunity to film something. So I had to figure out what I could play that would suit that number of strings, and in the end I managed to squeeze in one Harpist in the Wild filming in Tauranga, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, where my host was able to, we went to this park where the beautiful walk, it was sort of the perfect amount. So for me, when I'm doing a Harpist in the Wild episode, ideally there's a balance between not wanting to like lug a harp 2 miles or 3 miles or whatever, but at the same time, it's nice not to just feel like you pull up and take the harp out of the car and you're there, that you actually get into the wilds a bit and hike a little bit and feel that you're having an adventure. And so this was at a perfect sort of length of this nice hike through this beautiful rainforest to this waterfall, this great little waterfall. And I played the little fountain, which, to be honest, is not actually my favorite piece, but I have it memorized, and I could adapt it. I had to make a few adaptations, but I could adapt it for this size harp. So ended up playing that, and worked out quite nicely. I really love the visuals of this. Some great color. Yeah, you can see the harp. Right, goes down to a G duple. And then, there we are. And then that was New Zealand. So then I had a little bit more time as things went on to try and prepare some lever harp stuff. And from New Zealand, I flew to Melbourne. And this is where I met up with this couple who'd Rachel had gotten in touch with me about filming some harpists in the wild, and this was a fantastic sort of 24-hour period where I landed, I took a bus halfway to where they were, and then they met me and picked me up, and we drove to this one location and sort of monitoring the weather because there were these windstorm warnings. And of course, when you're filming outside, you're always at the mercy of the weather, right? You can't control it, and we only had this small window of time. So we ended up at this fantastic location, right? This is Pistachio, right? Bernard Andre's. I figured I would film these two spices pieces. And so there was this location here you can see with the water flowing down, amazing. And then this location you can see the wind, right? Whoa. And so we hiked along, and they were fearless, right? They had the little cart for her harp, and they were all ready to go anywhere. And we got up to the water location, but there were some people there, so we went back to the other location, which wasn't that far away, and filmed. And I ended up filming Pistachio in both locations, and Vanilla, which was the other one I wanted to film. So, but mainly Pistachio, and I ended up splicing both those locations, so we got both those visuals in. And then we went on further to another location. But before we do, I have to show you what I saw at that first location that really let me know that I was in Australia. I think this was after filming. This little clip was after filming, but getting in, this is a park, so getting there, right, sort of near where the cars were parked, all these kangaroos, right? So clearly I'm in Australia. Excellent. So from there we went on to this other location, and this time it was much less of a hike, but there was a little bit of rain, right? And so a couple of times we brought the harp out, oh no, rain, and brought it back in again, and then ended up, and again, this is the advantage sometimes of having other people around who maybe say, well, no, let's wait a little bit longer. And I think Michael in particular, both of them has some photography background, right? And they, you can see there's this potential for this great light if the clouds sort of go away a little bit and the rain clears up. So yeah, we waited a little bit longer and ended up filming. This was just a single take. Here's Vanilla. And yeah, so this is a case where I think one really needed a drone or something, because you don't necessarily get the sense of this huge, vast, you're up on this cliff and you're looking down and this valley down there and the light, and amazing. So we filmed there and then went back to their place, and the next morning went out to a third location. And at this point, I didn't have anything prepared. So this was more just, we'll go out there, take some photos. I had a great time taking some bird photos, wandering around just in this very much felt like Australia or somewhere new, different than here in BC. And but there was this great rock, so you can't really see it. Maybe here, the sense of it here, but I'm up on a rock, so yeah, that they'd actually gotten the harp up there, and Rachel was playing up there a bit. And sorry, let me bring me back here. And so I went ahead and tried something, and I'd done a workshop on how to learn my Forgotten Summer, my composition Forgotten Summer in New Zealand. So it was still in my mind, it was still memorized, and I thought, okay, I'll try that here. And I'm glad I did, because it was again a beautiful setting, and and that was then the first episode. Then that's the one I used as the first episode, even though it was actually the third of the 3 pieces that got filmed in Australia. And from there, then it was on to Tasmania. And I'm just going to check in here with a chat. I I need to find a beaver for one of my Canadian Harpist in the Wild episodes. Exactly. I don't know that I've ever seen a beaver here in Canada. And I think Hope asked earlier here, was it a drone footage? No drone footage. I actually had a drone with me the entire trip, but was never in a spot where I think the regulations would allow me to fly it. So yeah, no, I think drone footage can be really fantastic, but can be a bit awkward to get sometimes. What else? Okay, I think that's good. So then on to Tasmania, right? And there it was neat because the person then who was hosting me, Susan, she has an Excalibur, just like mine, different color, but I knew that she had an Excalibur, so I planned to record my transcription of Le Dodo, or Love in the Cradle, or whatever, this Berceuse, this lovely cradle song by Kupron, and which is a beautiful piece of music. And I thought potentially recording that near Cradle Mountain, which this is actually a painting that I was given, and it's a reproduction, but a reproduction of a painting of Cradle Mountain. And I thought that would be a perfect setting for this cradle song. In the end, we didn't make it up to Cradle Mountain. That didn't work out, but filmed with the organ pipes, these mountains in the background. Let me bring that up here. I guess you can't quite see the organ pipes from this angle, but you have these sort of lines in the mountain that kind of look like organ pipes. Oh yeah, a little bit more here. So yeah, we filmed that, and then we were headed north, but couldn't resist stopping at another park and scouted it out. Beautiful waterfall, great, this fern rainforest, and ended up bringing the harp out, and I did one take of the last Ros of Summer, and that's the one then that I ended up using as in the season. And yeah, just amazing. These ferns, the little stream, river nearby. And yeah, great times. And yeah, certainly for the Kupron, you can play it without the low A, but I knew I could use, like if you have it, you can add the low A. So I definitely, it was nice to play on an Excalibur for that with that low A. And then what was neat was to finally, with those two recordings, right, with the Kupron and Last Ros of Summer, they completed videos for my transcriptions book 1 and transcriptions book 2. I've now recorded videos of all the pieces. It was just waiting for those two pieces to finish off that. So that felt good. And from there, then I flew to Sydney, and then from there I flew to Japan. So my first time in Japan, and kind of neat to be somewhere where it feels like quite a totally different culture in a way, right? That Australia or New Zealand or Europe, they're not so dissimilar from Canada, but Japan quite different. And like riding the subways and all the guys in their dark suits, 90+% of people wearing black suits, and yeah, so just a small little sense of the country. But again, somebody had reached out and said, hey, I can help facilitate filming Harpist in the Wild. And so the goal was to get Mount Fuji in the background. And they'd done a bunch of scouting, they'd got up to the location, they checked Google Maps, Google Earth, I think, and there was a camera feed that you could see what the conditions were like. But again, we only had one day, right? So you're just hoping the conditions are good. And I planned there to record this Chopin Nocturne that Barbara Brundage arranged, which I felt was somehow, to me, kind of matched the character of Japan somehow. And it's funny because it's a beautiful arrangement and it's a beautiful piece of music. And I think by playing it on lever harp, if I were playing it on pedal harp, I would want to more closely match the original, like the left hand, instead of single notes is octave, chord, chord. But by playing it on lever harp, where it's clear you know too many lever changes to try and do an exact note for note replication, it frees me up to feel like, okay, I'll just do the essence, and this arrangement captures it beautifully. And so I took the transit system, met up with them in Yokohama, and then we drove up into the mountains, and they had arranged to get permission to open a gate so they could drive closer to the location. And so at one point we stopped and went into this little town hall, I guess, all the bureaucrats sitting there, and got the paperwork, and and I had this sense, I don't know if it's true or not, but sort of maybe all this bureaucracy, but that it's not necessarily there to stop you from doing things. Like, okay, yes, you have to follow these steps, but then yes, of course you can do that or whatever. And I don't know if that's true, but anyway, I found it a delightful sort of excursion. And then we got up there, and the clouds, there were a bunch of clouds in front of Mount Fuji, right? And so we had lunch and hoped that maybe it would clear, but it didn't in the end. But still a beautiful location, right? This, just all these mountains in the background. Just playing underneath a cherry tree here. No blossoms on this particular one. But, fantastic location. And so that was the one that they had physically scouted out. But then they had another potential location that they scouted out online. And again, I had prepared the Chopin. I didn't necessarily have anything else specifically in mind, but I knew I could try and record my Fantasy on Greensleeves again. And so we decided we'd try this other location through all these little windy roads up the mountains, and this was, I believe, the location of a former shrine that is now a park. And so we got there and scouted it around, and actually the location of the former shrine ended up being a great option because there was a cherry tree with blossoms. So how iconically Japanese can you get? And the pine trees behind that, and the light coming through, some fantastic light. So I love this setting, right? It's, again, light can have a huge difference, can make or break a location, and this was just so atmospheric. That was the last Harpist in the Wild on this trip. So I headed back a couple days later to Canada, and eventually managed to edit everything together, and that was season 5 of Harpist in the Wild. These 9 music videos. And so as I say, I've just started work on trying to put together the story of this whole thing, and I see in the comments that people. Of course, the story, we all connect with story, but again, trying to figure out the best way to incorporate both the story and the music. Just checking in here at the comments. Fuji would be a perfect background. Yeah, for sure. And actually, the friend I was staying with, we ended up going to a location right next to Mount Fuji on a really clear day, and such an iconic mountain, and it would have been great, but worked out okay. And again, you can't control the weather, right? So you just have to. It wasn't raining, so that's great. Any questions? Any questions out there? So right now, I'm actually getting ready to go back down under. I'll be back in New Zealand and Australia, starting with Australia, coming up here in February, and I'll be touring both of those countries, and definitely going to try and film some Harpist in the Wild there. And Legend of Ashitaka would have been great. Yeah, so I thought of actually, there's what is it? There's a piece that It's from, I think, one of the Final Fantasy games. It's called To Xanarkand, I believe, which is beautiful, beautiful melody. And I did a lever harp arrangement of it. I actually have, I filmed it and I have never put that footage together. So I need to do that one of these days. I filmed it at a Japanese garden here in Canada, but here in Victoria. But I thought that would have been a great piece to film in Japan. But it has a lot of lever changes, and again, I just didn't have enough time to practice it. So that, yeah. Cinematic look with the cherry blossoms and the light, yeah, for sure, for sure. So anyway, so yeah, I hope to film some more stuff down under, and as well, then I have some footage from this past European trip that I have to start putting together for another season, and filming some stuff here as well. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that little behind the scenes look at this season of Harpist in the Wild, this past season 5, and stay tuned for as I say, this sort of a polished story of this season, and then for season 6 coming at some point in 2024. And I'll keep you posted. I also have a couple Harpist in the Wild music videos that should be coming out soon. So yeah, stay tuned. And thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful holidays and a very happy and wonderful 2024 to you. I will see you soon. Cheers.